What if I told you that the pile of mail on your counter, the closet that you can't quite close, the junk drawer you've been meaning to deal with for 2 years? What if all of that was quietly affecting your cortisol levels, your sleep, your ability to focus, and even your sense of self-worth? Clutter is not just an aesthetic problem, it's a health problem. And the most dangerous thing about it is how slowly it creeps in. Welcome to your daily hit of grace and grit, your quick dose of inspiration to kickstart your day. I'm Courtney Townley, and here is today's hit. Look, clutter doesn't arrive all at once, right? Nobody wakes up one day and decides their home is going to be overwhelmed with stuff. It happens incrementally. One pile, one drawer, one I'll deal with it later, and then later becomes never and never becomes normal. That is what makes clutter insidious. It's a slow lowering of our standards. And the danger is not just what it does to your space. It's what it does to your standards everywhere else. When we habituate to disorder in our environment, we begin to habituate to disorder in our lives. We begin tolerating things that we wouldn't have tolerated before. A cluttered kitchen makes it easier to reach for convenience food instead of cooking. A chaotic bedroom makes it harder to wind down and sleep. A disorganized schedule makes it easier to skip the workout. The clutter becomes the context, and the context shapes the behavior. So, no moral judgment here, right? That's not what this is about. It's just a psychological reality. And there's lots of research to back this up. So, there was a study published in the journal Personality and Social Psychology by researchers Darby Saxby and Rena Rapetti that found that women who described their homes as cluttered or full of unfinished projects had higher levels of cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Throughout the day, right, they had higher cortisol levels. Women who described their homes as restful and restorative showed cortisol levels that declined naturally over the course of the day, as they should. The cluttered home group did not show that healthy decline. So let that sink in. The state of your physical environment is influencing your hormonal state throughout your whole day. And cortisol is not a benign inconvenience, right? Chronically elevated cortisol, as you heard me talk about so many times, is linked to pretty much everything we rumble with along our health journey. It's linked to disrupted sleep, increased appetite and cravings, reduced immune function, accelerated aging at the cellular level, anxiety, depression, the list goes on. We spend enormous energy trying to manage through exercise and breath work and all the things, our stress, right? We try to manage our stress through all of these behaviors, all of which are valuable, right? No one's arguing that. But we're doing it while sometimes completely ignoring the stress that is baked into our physical environment. So I always talk about health being multidimensional. It's physical, mental, emotional, relational, environmental. And this is that environment piece. Here's another little piece of research for you. Research from Princeton University's Neuroscience Institute found that physical clutter competes for your attention, reducing your ability to focus and process information. Multiple stimuli in your visual field, so all that stuff, it all fights for neural resources, leaving you with less cognitive bandwidth for everything else. And look, I don't know a midlife woman who needs more challenges with cognitive bandwidth. Do you? But this helps to explain something that many of us have felt but could never name. That low-grade mental fog, that sense of being vaguely overwhelmed, even when nothing is technically wrong. Well, your brain is doing invisible work. It's doing invisible labor, just being in a cluttered space. It's processing, filtering, and reacting to everything in your environment, whether you asked it to or not. So our environments are not just where we live. They're a reflection of how we see ourselves. Let that sink in for a second. So our environment literally becomes a reinforcement of self-image. So I used to give this analogy of like encouraging people to drink water. I would say to them, if you were a fish swimming in a fish tank, what kind of water would you want to be swimming in? Well, I would want to be swimming in clear, clean water, right? Not like sludge, toxic mess water. But when we aren't hydrating and we aren't eating well, that's kind of what our cells are bathing in, right? And I love this, considering this piece about how our environment reinforces self-image. What kind of self-image do you want for your life, for yourself? And what would need to shift about your environment to help reinforce that? This goes back to the standards. Like, what standards do you want to have for your life? And does your environment reflect that? The reverse is also true here, of course, right? So when you make a clear space, even a small one, something shifts. You stand a little different. You make slightly different choices. The environment begins to send a different signal, and you begin to confirm a different identity. I have experienced this so many times in my life. I mean, just recently, we have a drawer in our bathroom that literally has become a junk drawer. Like, it's where the toothpaste lives, and also everything else that doesn't really have a home. And every time I open it, I get anxiety because I can never find what I need. It just kind of reinforces that this thing is misplaced. Like, this whole drawer is misplaced because this is not how I want my life to feel. So last weekend, I took an hour and I cleaned it out. I washed it out. I threw a bunch of stuff away. I got little containers to put everything in so I could find things more easily. And I am convinced that I have slept better ever since. So I want to be clear that when I talk about clutter, I'm not just talking about the stuff in your home, because clutter lives other places too, right? We have mental clutter. All the unfinished thoughts, the decisions you've been avoiding, the mental tabs you've left open for weeks or months. We have emotional clutter, the unprocessed grief, the relationships that drain more than they give, the resentments that you've never really worked through. We have calendar clutter, the commitments that you said yes to out of obligation, the obligations that no longer align with who you're becoming, the busyness that feels productive but is actually just noise. All of that's clutter. All of it has a cost. And all of it responds to the same basic principle that you have to be willing to look at it honestly, decide what serves you, and let go of what doesn't. So I want to circle back one more time to this idea of standards, because I really think this is the heart of what makes clutter a health issue, not just a tidiness issue. Every time you walk past a pile and don't deal with it, you're setting a standard. Every time you leave a mental tab open instead of closing it, you're setting a standard. Every time you hold on to something physically, emotionally, or relationship-wise that no longer serves you because letting go feels like too much effort, you are setting a standard. And standards, once lowered, have a way of staying low. They normalize. They become the new baseline. And then the next lowering feels smaller because the bar was already down. On the flip side, standards once raised also have a way of holding. When you clear one thing out, like my bathroom drawer, really clear it, not just shuffle it, you create a new baseline, a new normal. One that your future self has to live up to or consciously choose to abandon. And a lot of times you won't abandon it because it feels too good to maintain it. So please do not hear that I'm asking you to overhaul your life this weekend. I am not. What I am doing is asking you to consider picking one thing, one drawer, one pile, one unfinished decision you've been avoiding, one relationship you need to have an honest conversation about, one commitment on your calendar that has your name on it, but not your heart. Clear it. Just that one thing. And notice what happens in your body when you do. Because clutter is insidious, but so is clarity. It spreads, it compounds, it raises the standard for everything around it. If this stirred something inside of you, imagine what a whole book of clarity and courage could ignite. The Consistency Code, a midlife woman's guide to deep health and happiness, goes even deeper into the mindset and practices that create real, meaningful change at midlife. Grab your copy today over at theconsistencycode.com and keep the momentum alive.